Listen, hood hood, welcome to the Foxboro Rush. Travis Thomas here with my man Adam Pellerin, who always laughs when I do that. And that's why I appreciate you more than ever, my friend. How are you?
I am better now. You know, every time we've done a show together, I think I'm just like doing it for the first time because it's always fantastic. It's so fresh. It's like hearing you go, like just it got me in a better mood automatically. This is a different show. We haven't done this show together, but we've done other shows together. But yeah, I'm glad you're always bringing it. That's all I got to say.
Absolutely, absolutely. And here on Foxboro Rush, we talk all things Patriots, all things NFL. I want to start with you, though, on the ice. I mean, I just said I haven't seen you, and every time I see you now, it's remote because you're traveling with the Bruins. How are things? I mean, we know how it's going on the ice with the team, but how are you, man? You hanging in there or what?
I was living out of my suitcase for a while, Trav, from like mid-March all the way to like the end of April and beginning of May. But yeah, no, man, I'm good. It's great to see the Bruins advance to the second round. That was in doubt. So I actually did not go to Florida this time around. Andrew Raycroft went for games 1 and game 2. I'll be back at the Garden for game 3 and 4, doing a little pre and post after that. And then we'll see where the series takes us, my friend.
Okay, great. So if you weren't traveling, that means you had plenty of time to watch the Tom Brady roast, which is the gift that keeps on giving, Adam. I mean, I feel like at this point, I could just keep talking Tom Brady roast for the rest of my career. Let's go there because I have talked about it ad nauseum. I've heard George's takes on this ad nauseum. I have not heard yours, so we'll start fresh here. Let's just go with your overall take of the roast. Favorite moments you could do without, and then I'll ask you more about the drama surrounding it and some of the fallout. But just give me your take on the roast overall.
All right, so first off, I was like, oh man, this is on tonight because I was just there chilling on Sunday. It was my daughter's first communion. We were sort of winding down, and then just kind of looking for something to watch and happened to stumble upon Netflix. And I'm like, oh, man, that's tonight. And so I kind of joined the party 40 minutes in. And then I was like, oh, wait a minute. Can I restart this? So I restarted it from the beginning. So I got to watch it from the beginning. I thought right away it was pretty cool to see Bill Belichick, Drew Bledsoe, and Tom Brady do that little skit at the beginning, which I was like, oh, all right, Bill's on board. Drew's on board. This could be pretty good. I was wondering, all right, obviously, the whole Giselle thing, I was wondering if that was going to be something that was brought up a little bit.
Yeah.
And, man, they hammered that. It was
right away, too, Adam. Right out of the gate, bro.
I couldn't believe it. Like, I mean, and Tom's just sort of sitting there awkwardly and, didn't really have a reaction to some things, kind of laughed and put his head down on other things. You could hear it from the audience, like the gasps, like the jiu-jitsu instructor. Like, I don't know. Again, there's been so much to your point. We've talked so much about this. Somebody had said that Kevin Hart initially planned to wear a jiu-jitsu robe out as like part of the whole thing, and he didn't end up doing that. So that might have been next, but there were a lot of great moments. I mean, I wrote down a couple of my favorite jokes. I think, Bill Belichick. All right. Shout out to Bill for getting up there.
Yeah.
It was hard to butt heads with Tom because he was so far up Alex Guerrero's ass, which I thought was hilarious.
That was very good.
So, yeah, like stuff like that. It was really cool to see Bill buy in. It was cool to see Drew buy in. And then some of the stand-up comics, which, I wasn't sure what to expect. I wasn't sure. Nikki Glaser, I've seen some of her stuff before, but she nailed it.
She did.
Andrew Schultz was hilarious. Tony Hinchcliffe was awesome. I howled when he said thanks to Gronk for taking a break from writing letters to Santa. I don't know, it just hit me. Some of them hit me. But I will say, like, what I didn't love about it, the Aaron Hernandez stuff was a little contrived. I thought it was forced.
Yep.
And look, I mean, we could talk the entire podcast about that. I just thought that, like, Julian Edelman's line, and I can't remember it specifically. It was like, oh man, that was forced. Like, like, I mean, I get it, but like, come on,
Mm-hmm.
There's plenty of other good stuff that you can get into. But yeah, so overall, I thought it was awesome. I didn't expect Peyton to come out at the end. I guess a lot of people didn't even know he was going to be there. Like Julian Edelman said on his podcast that he saw him in the green room getting ready. He's like, "Oh man, what are you doing here?" So they held some of the things back, even from the the honored guests that were on stage. But and I thought Ron Burgundy thing was pretty good. But overall, I thought it was great. It surprised me. It surprised me how hard they went in on some of the stuff.
It surprised everyone. And by the way, how funny is life from your angle? I mean, first Holy Communion by day, and then a vulgar roast by night. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, Adam. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, great observation, Trav. Yeah, right? Little one was in bed by then. It was just the wife and I just watching this, like jaws dropping, howling, being like, oh, like all these different reactions, which is what a roast is supposed to be.
Right.
But again, it's Tom Brady. And you don't know what he's going to okay and what and I'm glad that, honestly, if it's going to be a roast, go all in, because if it's not all in, then it's not a roast and it's fake,
Right. Well, it was all in sort of, because that Julian Edelman podcast you mentioned. So Edelman and Bledsoe said they didn't know Robert Kraft was even coming till the day of. Andrew Schultz, who you brought up, revealed that Brady didn't want any jokes about Robert Kraft. Everyone had kind of came to the agreement that Robert Kraft was off, he was off limits there. And then we saw Jeff Ross right out of the gate go at Robert Kraft. And then we saw Brady in a semi Will Smith moment, sans a slap, but we saw Brady approach him and say, hey man, don't say that again. So I found it funny or interesting that we're talking about wives and kids and ex-dead teammates. And I mean, all this stuff that's being thrown in your face, a cryptocurrency Ponzi scheme, all kinds of nonsense, but all that's okay. But you better not say anything about Robert Kraft. I mean, that felt kind of weird to me from both places. From Brady's perspective, why is everything else open game except him? And then more importantly, from the Robert Kraft perspective, bro, why even show up? Like, do you know what a roast is? If you're gonna show up, right, you got to be able to take the heat that's coming out of the kitchen here. The jokes are gonna come at you. And look, joke's on you for putting yourself in that position anyways down in Jupiter, Florida. Don't get me started. But I'm just saying, if that's off limits and you don't want that to happen, instead of showing up and dictating, which I imagine he had to have told Tom, no jokes on me, then why even be there? Just don't show up.
Yeah, I hear you, and that makes a lot of sense. I will say, though, a couple of the examples that you had about, the Giselle thing and the Aaron Hernandez stuff, well, neither of those two parties were in attendance. Right. So Giselle wasn't there. Obviously, no one connected to Aaron Hernandez was there. Robert Kraft was there. And oh, by the way, Robert Kraft is still the Patriots owner. And Tom Brady is a minority owner with the Raiders, and probably sees himself as maybe a 100% owner at some point. And he knows that Robert Kraft could have a say in that. So that was probably a business decision too on Tom's part. In terms of Jeff Ross and the joke itself, it was weak, right? It's like, all right, so you're going to go there. But if you're going to go there and have it be funny. It wasn't even funny. It was just like he said, you want a massage? And and like some people laugh because, but like it wasn't even clever. It's just like you got to waste your bullet on that.
Right. Yeah. If you're going to go there, go all the way in. What are your thoughts of Bill Belichick being so humanized lately? Because I got to admit, I love it. From the Pat McAfee show to the roast. I mean, Bill just seems like a cool dude. And for all these years now, obviously, you have been in market throughout the dynasty. you covered the Patriots. You know more than I do. But from the outside, before I got here to this market, everyone said Bill's actually a really cool dude. You would just never know it because he hates you, the media, right? So then I get here. I did get a chance to cover him a couple years, his last few years before he got fired. And I'm like, all right, he doesn't seem cool to me. He still seems like the ornery guy that I saw on the outside looking in. But now that it's over and he's not coaching, he seems really cool. Yeah, I mean, you and I agree. He was great at the roast. And as I said, even after the Dynasty documentary, which clearly was a mudsling campaign. I mean, they slandered him up and down. And you saw players come out and defend him after that, rightfully so. I think Robert Kraft should be ashamed of that. And he didn't even take ownership of it, even though it's under his production company. But that's another topic for another Foxboro Rush. But I imagine you seeing Bill, the human now, and being fun and smile. I had never seen him smile and laugh more than I did in that roast. I have to imagine that's pretty cool for you, right?
Yeah, and it's funny too, and I think people, conveniently forget that we have seen Bill smile and laugh when it's not in Foxborough, when it's not addressing the media after practice, after a game, or anything related to the Patriots. I mean, we've seen it before. You go back and be like, oh yeah, that's right. Oh yeah, that's right. He is a human being, but he was sort of like, I don't know, use the analogy of, you never talk to a starting pitcher on the day he pitches, right?
Right.
I mean,
right.
Bill Belichick was basically starting every single day, right? Where he was in a bad mood, he was ornery, he was getting ready for the game, and you never really saw the light side of Bill during the season. But I agree with you. I mean, I thought he did a good job. I thought Kevin Hart, after Bill got on stage, gave him props because it must not have been easy for him to be up there knowing that he was going to get skewered and knowing that he was in front of, all these people who had a certain opinion about him. And most people probably think by now that Tom Brady was responsible and not Bill.
Right.
And he's going up there to that audience in the crowd and the millions of people watching at home. And, oh, yeah, the guy who fired you a few months ago is in the audience watching. Ooh. I mean, that can't be easy. That can't be easy to get up and do that. But he had a great sense of humor about it, not only when he delivered his roast, but when he was sitting there and he was hearing the jokes and the Foxborough High jokes that the players were more than ready to sling in his direction, especially Edelman. Yeah. And he took it in stride. I give him credit for that.
Yeah, for sure. I actually thought he looked extremely uncomfortable with taking the shot when they all took the shot together. He everyone else seemed very cool. Bill was very much like, I don't want to do this. Get me out of here. Isn't this thing over yet? But he still, to your point, was still a good sport. All right, let me ask you about this because George and I did winners and losers of the roast, right? My loser was Kim Kardashian. I was confused as to why she was even there. Like, did her and Tom date and I didn't remember or didn't know? Was this back during the Tara Reid days that I missed? I don't know. I still, to this day, don't really get why she was there. But not only did I think she shouldn't have been there, but then she was awful. I didn't even think she was good. The best part of her being there was Tom getting off the joke about Kanye watching the kids. That was fantastic. But
yeah, that was.
But I mean, she clearly everyone felt the way I did, Adam, because we both watched it live. We heard it. The boo birds were out. They booed her ass. But when you go back now and you look at them on Netflix, the boos are gone. The plot thickens. Do you think Kim told Netflix, get that out of there? Or better yet, do you think Kris Jenner told Netflix to get those boos out of there? Because that's where I'm going. I think Kris Jenner is so manipulative and powerful and just sold her soul for that family long ago that she is in control of everything. I think she called a big wig at Netflix and said, get those boos out of there for my daughter. What do you make of all this?
No, Travis. It was for the purposes of time. This is a live broadcast. They had to cut it down, and they didn't want to compromise the broadcast by taking out any of the jokes.
Now I
Of course the
understand.
Kardashians are behind it. There's no doubt. I mean, come on. That's the only, I mean, outside of, and we'd have to go back and watch it. I'm not sure if they took Tom Brady whispering to Jeff Ross to cut it out of the broadcast. I don't know if they did or not. I have to go back and look at that. But everything else stayed in. All the Aaron Hernandez jokes, all the Giselle jokes, every other joke that was like crossing the line stayed in there, but not the boos. Like the boos were taken out. The Kardashians were 1,000% behind that. And I know we probably have to move on in a bit, and I want to make sure we get this in. Did Rodney Harrison smile the entire night?
I know.
Did you notice that?
He's an intense
Every
dude.
time the camera cut in his direction,
he's an intense guy.
It was almost like the jokes were directed at him, and not a single joke was thrown in his direction, but he was pissed off the entire night.
Well, listen, you know this more than I do. Again, outside looking in forever, I always give respect to the people who covered these teams for years and years and years. I'm not here. I've been here 2 years, and I don't come into this market and act like I've been here forever. And I think that's one of the reasons that I'm resonating with people, because they respect that. You've covered this team. I've heard stories about Rodney Harrison being intense, being sort of grumpy, quite frankly. So I was not surprised with that. In fact, I can't remember who it was, but someone who was up there roasting at the time, and they were kind of going through the players, and they just said, Rodney, you're handsome. Like, it was almost like he was scaring people. Were scared to make jokes about Rodney Harrison because of that grimace, that growl.
Why was he up there?
I don't know.
You know what I mean?
I
mean, Brady knows that better than anybody. Why was he up there? It just didn't. It looked. It really stood out to me. I was looking for it every single time. I'm like, is Rodney going to smile here? Oh, come on, that was kind of funny. The Foxboro High thing? No, okay. He didn't. He didn't crack a smile the entire night.
Yeah, it was
which
strange.
Was crazy.
It was strange, and I didn't think Randy Moss was great either. I understood why he was there. I understood why he had the podium and he talked, but he didn't really. None of his speaking parts landed for me really. Drew Bledsoe did a great job. Julian Edelman, who you brought up, Gronk, of course. The players did well, but a couple of them didn't. Randy Moss was not great, and Rodney Harrison just shouldn't have showed. Him and Robert Kraft should not have showed up because they just didn't participate in the right way. All right, let's pivot to this. Patriots search for a new executive vice president of player personnel. Let me say that again, Adam. A new executive vice president of player personnel. Most teams call these a general manager. So my question to you, my friend, as someone who has covered this team for a long time, the Pats have not had an official GM, normal, since 1990. What the hell is an executive vice president of player personnel? Why not just call him a GM? Before we get into the candidates and who's it going to be, why won't they just call it that? Is this another Robert Kraft special here, Adam? Explain this to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a good question, and it kind of surprised me, like looking at that, saying 1990. First of all, it's not as if 1990 and that period of time in Patriots history was all that great, where we can't give somebody the general manager title because it was such a revered title back then. It was not. The Patriots were 1-15 back in '91, 2-14. I mean, it was a terrible point in Patriots history until Bill Parcells showed up, and then he had decision making power, not just being the head coach, but in the front office as well. And, he famously had that quote, right? After he didn't want to draft Terry Glenn. He wanted to draft Tony Brackens. And he ended up saying, hey, if we want to cook the dinner, you should at least be able to shop for the groceries, right? Mm-hmm. And then that spelled the end of his time in Foxborough. And then Bill Belichick, being the guy for so long, he and Scott Pioli worked closely together, and Nick Caserio later. I don't know why they don't give him the GM title. I honestly don't know, and I'd have to look at the rest of the league and see how many teams don't have a quote unquote general manager. I don't have the answer to that question, but I don't know if it's because they want to keep some of the Bill Belichick infrastructure intact. And so that's why they're electing to go with this other title. I don't know. I don't have a good answer for you. I just think that maybe some of the things that Bill did and are staying in place, and they're moving on from some of the other things.
Yeah, listen, I chalk it up to, I see this happening in every industry. It's very corporate America in 2024 and beyond.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of these traditional roles that we have known now have these fancy new titles, but they're still, you know, in terms of job duties, they're still very traditional of what they've always been. But you sort of update it, and, you know, I get it in the social media LinkedIn era that we live in, right? It's just, it makes you sound probably more important, I guess, if you have a bunch of titles in your whatever your job is. That's what I chalk it up to. I don't make it that much of a big deal. Where I have a unique perspective here, Adam, you know, I have mixed emotions about the job because I see the Patriots trying to abide to the Rooney Rule, and I do appreciate that. I mean, the first black coach in their franchise's history is awesome, and I'm obviously rooting for Gerard Mayo, and I've spoken about that a bunch since he's been hired. But, you know, I also want that same opportunity afforded to black executives. But we all know what's going on here, Adam. I mean, Elliot Wolf's going to get the job. Everyone knows it. And you're seeing a lot of these minority candidates even turn down interviews. We have some taking them, but they know they're not getting the job. They're probably doing it to gain the experience of the interview and, you know, just get on the radar around the league, which I respect. I would take the interview for the same reason, even though I would know that Elliot Wolf's going to get the job. So I guess with all that being said, you know, I believe Elliot Wolf should get the job, Adam, because of one thing. And we won't really know in totality if the draft class that he quarterbacked, pun intended, is going to be any good or not for a few years. But I tell you one damn thing. All the scuttlebutt I was hearing leading up to this draft about J.J. McCarthy at 3 and trade back and get more picks like Belichick would do and all this nonsense, Elliot Wolf did the right move, which was take the best quarterback available on the board at number 3. We all assumed it would be Drake May or Jaden Daniels. It ended up being Drake May. He took him. There was no overthinking. There was no smartest guy in the room trying to prove this and prove that. There was no let me make my mark. You know, I don't know how long I'm going to be here, so let me make my mark on Patriots history. No, he did the right thing, the smart thing, the commonsensical thing, and took Drake May. For that, I believe he's the man for the job. I really do, Adam.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. And I actually found an article, you know, because his dad was Ron Wolf, right? Who put together those great Packers teams. And, you know, there was a quote about, you know, drafting a wide receiver high. It's like, well, who's going to throw him the football, right? And I think maybe some of that has been passed down to Elliot Wolf. Now, with that said, Patriots really needed a quarterback. So I give him credit. But at the same time, it's sort of a no-brainer, right? I mean, you got to draft the best available quarterback with the number 3 pick because you want to start your franchise and you want to start your tenure potentially as whatever this title is, executive vice president of player personnel. You want to start off on the right foot. But yeah, I mean, it seems that like they addressed all of their needs. I mean, what all but one pick was an offensive player. They drafted a quarterback. They drafted wide receivers. They drafted offensive linemen, and those are all positions of need. And there would be drafts in the past where you'd be like, all right, they definitely need this, this, and this. And they would go with that, that, and that. And you'd be like, what's going on here? And again, Bill Belichick is the GOAT, right? Greatest coach of all time, but his decision-making when it came to his draft selections was certainly scrutinized. Again, time will tell if these were the right picks, but it seemed like he addressed the right areas of need.
Yes.
And so if we're going back to the original question about him getting the job, it's like, yeah, I mean, I feel like if you were going to give it to somebody else, you wouldn't let this guy handle free agency. You wouldn't let this guy handle the draft.
Right.
You know, and draft the future franchise quarterback potentially for the New England Patriots. This is, you know, like you want to get somebody in there prior to that, right, and have him do it, right?
Yeah. Yep.
have he or she do it.
Yep.
And I think that because of that, yeah, they are going through the interview process and they are abiding by the Rooney Rule, which they have to do. So, but at the end of the day, Trav, I'm with you. It's got to be him. It has to be him.
Yeah, I think so. I think it was an audition, right? And in a lot of ways, if we look at it that way and we use that analogy, I think he nailed the audition and he deserves the job. Now, let me ask you this, because this is something George and I argue about constantly. I am of the mindset, going back to Drake May here, I'm of the mindset of you have a defense capable of winning right now. They were good last year with injuries. So if they are healthy, I think they have potential to be great. Now, obviously, I'm giving some credit here to Gerard Mayo, who is a defensive-minded head coach, albeit a rookie. So I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt that there won't be any drop-off in the defense. At least, Adam, just keep everything status quo with the defense. So I'm going to give him that. With that being said, in this league, if you have a decent defense, you're in every game. You may not win every game, but you're in every game. Your offense nowadays is what wins games. So I'm thinking this season is not going to be as bad. Everyone using this term rebuild, they're using it too loosely, in my opinion. I think you're going to be in a lot of games, and I'm of the mentality of if Drake May is this dynamic athlete that we think he is, get him out there sooner rather than later. I respect developing the player, cleaning up some fundamental things that we can look at on tape and see he needs to work on. I'm with all that. But hell, we have rookie minicamp that we'll talk about shortly. We have training camp, OTAs, preseason. Give them the first month of the regular season, for all I care, to sit on the bench and soak it all in. But I'm of the mentality that you're going to be hovering around 500. I don't think this is some over team here. I want to go to Drake May sooner than later to give me a shot on the back end of the season to maybe make some noise, knock off some playoff teams, maybe fight for a wild card. George is of the mentality of he doesn't even want to see Drake May until December, period. Just, it's a rebuild, punt on the season, bring in May at the end of the year. And look, he's not here to defend himself. To his credit, his point is if you bring him in too soon, you could stunt his growth forever and then really set your franchise back. So I understand where George is coming from. I'm not taking shots at him, but I disagree with him, Adam. What side of this debate are you on? Where are you at? Probably somewhere in between, knowing you, right?
Well, yeah, probably. But I want to answer your question with a question. What if the Patriots, with Jacoby Brissett under center, start off 5-0?
Oh, my God. I mean,
what do you do then? What do you do? No, seriously, what if they go on a heater with Jacoby Brissett to start the season?
Yeah.
Because you want to get him in sooner rather than later.
Sure.
You go away from him? Or do you stick with Brissett? Because you're winning games, and that's the name of the game, right?
Listen, bro. If you start off the season 5-0 with Jacoby Brissett, I would say start drinking some water and pop some Advil because you're drunk. I'm sorry. Like, as everything I just said about the defense being potentially great, and I'm not knocking Jacoby Brissett here, but he's not dynamic enough for me to believe that's going to happen, which is kind of my point. You know, I just
but with a good defense, like you said, with a good defense, this is possible, right? I mean, what was it? It was a record losing streak last year with the amount of points they held the opponent to over. What was it, like 7 or whatever it was? It was something crazy. I mean, who's to say that can't happen again with a healthy Matthew Judon and Christian Gonzalez back in the mix? Who's to say they can't do it at the beginning of the season? Their offense does just enough to get it done. Look, and they're 4-0, 5-0.
Okay, if you're 4-0,
what do you do?
If you're 4-0, 5-0, you obviously stick with Jacoby Brissett. For the sake of our convo, let's go a more realistic 3-2. Okay? If you're 3-2, I would still consider making the switch. I would. And in fact, the reason I use this analogy instead of the 5-0, if he's 5-0, you got to stick with him. No one's going to say to pull him. I just don't believe that's going to happen. if they're 3-2, Brissett's playing well, defense is playing well, I'm more apt to go to Drake May. Now look, all these evaluators and these coaches and these geniuses are watching the kid in practice. So if he's not ready, he's not ready. But if you're watching him and you're evaluating him and he's doing well in practice, and my team's 3-2 and Brissett has us in a good position here, I'm considering going to Drake May to see if we can go to that next level. I'll give you an example. And it happened later in the season, but remember when Harbaugh had the stones to go from Alex Smith, who got the 49ers in position for the playoffs, he went to Colin Kaepernick because Alex Smith was limited with what he could do offensively. Kaepernick had a higher ceiling. They went to the Super Bowl. They didn't win it, but the point being, he rolled the dice for a better athlete, someone who was a little more dynamic in the offense. Does that make sense? That's how I kind of see this playing out.
No, it does make sense. I just, again, I'm just thinking, I think this is where I land. It's not a guarantee, or it shouldn't be etched in stone that Jacoby Brissett, and I'm just going to throw, all right, you know what, Jacoby, here's the plan. You're going to play the first 4 weeks of the season, and then we're going to put it in Drake May no matter what. I don't think it should be like that, right? I think it should be sort of, let's see how things play out a little bit. Let's see how things play out, first off, in training camp, how he does in training camp, how he's learning the offense. Is he improving? Is he making strides? And then in preseason games, he's going to get some run there, obviously. And then when the season starts, let's see how things play out. How is the offensive line? Because if the offensive line is no good, do you want to throw your franchise quarterback out there and say, all right, here you go, kid. Your blind side is in fact blind, and it's dangerous. You don't want to do that, right? So you want to make sure that this kid is set up for success. So if he's going out there and you're going to feed him to the wolves, I don't know if that helps him necessarily.
Sure. No, it's a fair point. All right, look, for all the latest on Boston sports and pop culture, Roll with Adam and I on Boston has entered the chat. We talk about Bruins Panthers, of course, Game 3, and how Pasta's fight may help spark the team. All right, now we have rookie minicamp opening today, Adam. So I want to talk to you about this because, boy, it's different times around here. First of all, the media is welcome.
Yeah!
Come ask questions, have fun, let your hair down, maybe get a snack or two. So that's a whole new day for the Patriots. But also, what do you want to see from this rookie minicamp? Obviously, and I just talked about him, I need Drake May to flash a little bit of some of those athletic gifts that we're talking about, some of those explosive things. They're not going to have these guys, doing too much, obviously. But I've covered rookie minicamps. You've covered rookie minicamps. You can see flashes.
Not here.
Well, right. Correction. I've covered rookie minicamps. But you can see players who flash. That's what I'm really looking for here. I want to see, I want to hear some stories or see some video clips of Drake May just absolutely throwing, a rocket to somebody or getting outside of the pocket and putting a little skirt and then dipping on somebody. I just want to see some flashes of that athleticism from Drake May. What are you looking for from rookie minicamp?
First off, what you said right off the top is the fact that the media can cover this. I think it's really smart. I think it's a smart move by the Patriots, right? Because you got the next guy who's going to be in that mini camp. Right. You want to put him out there. You want to get, it's a business for them, all right? Just as much, as it is for anybody else, right? That Drake May is going to generate page views. Drake May is going to be able to drive their content on all of their platforms. So of course, people want to see him, and it's a smart move. I'm looking forward to seeing what the kid looks like in a Patriots jersey and a Patriots helmet. I think most people are. I'm also looking forward to seeing Javon Baker.
Oh, God.
I mean, or a guy that says, bring your popcorn. I make people in wheelchairs stand up. How can I not want to see this kid on the field? I'm really interested to see what he looks like because, he's his own hype man for sure. And on the other side of it, I'm also interested to see if any of these wide receivers that they drafted can contribute this year, if they could be legitimate contributors because, as we all know, their wide receiving core is very thin. I mean, they didn't go out and do a whole heck of a lot. They re-signed Kendrick Bourne. You have Mario Douglas on the roster, some other guys that are fine. But can any of these guys that they drafted make an impact this year?
Well, listen, Baker, for what he's been talking at him, I mean, this guy, he better be Randy Moss because I'm telling you right now, even starting now
I love it.
At rookie minicamp, if you're out there and you look just like a jag, just a guy, I don't want to hear you talk. I mean, the way he's talking at him, he better make some plays. All right, let's go fill in the blank here for season team leaders. Now, we know this offense was dead last in the league last season. So, Adam, there's only one way to go, and that's up, baby. Let's go with blank. Will lead the team in passing yards. You know I'm saying Drake May because I think he plays sooner than later. Will you go Drake May or Jacoby Brissett here?
Joe Milton. Oh, wait a minute. We're not talking about the preseason? Oh, okay. I thought we were talking about the preseason. Yeah, I'm going to go with Drake May. Despite everything I said earlier about this, fantasy, this hypothetical that the Patriots were going to start 5-0 and Jacoby Brissett was going to lead them to the promised land, I do believe that Drake May is eventually going to get in there. He's going to be the guy, and he'll be the one to lead them in passing yards.
I agree. All right, how about this? Blank will lead the team in receiving yards. I mean, you have a ton of people to pick from, but we don't know who the hell can actually play. You know what? I'll go Pop Douglas here. He led the team in receiving last year, which isn't saying much, but I like this kid. And I think, he's developing nicely. He feels like a gamer to me. He is a versatile player. I actually like Pop Douglas. I don't necessarily feel like he's a true number one wide receiver, but that's another topic for another Foxboro Rush as well. I don't know if they have one of those on the roster, quite frankly.
They haven't had one in a long time.
They haven't had one in a long time. But listen, from what I've seen from him and where he was drafted and all that kind of stuff, I actually like the kid. So I'll go Pop Douglas here.
Yeah, I'll go with Kendrick Bourne.
Okay.
I mean, I'm rooting for him. I think, obviously the ACL injury, he says he's going to be ready to go week 1 of training camp. So I'll take him at his word. He signed that contract in the offseason. The Patriots believe in him. I think he showed flashes of not necessarily being number one, but being a solid option for, whoever the quarterback is, whether it's Drake May, Jacoby Brissett. But I'm going to go with Kendrick Bourne.
All right, fair enough. And then blank will lead the team in receiving touchdowns. I'm going to go Hunter Henry here. And here's why. He had a decent year last year, but the reason I'm going to go here, I think because of my theory that Drake May is going to play a lot this season. I mean, a rookie quarterback's best friend is a strong run game, but also his tight end. And with no true wide receiver one here, there's no Justin Jefferson that you have to make sure you feed. I feel as though, Hunter Henry, especially you get down around that red zone, I just think the rookie will lock in on him. And also, look, Jacoby Brissett too, veteran quarterback. They're always going to look to the tight end to keep the chains moving, especially on big third downs, in between the hash marks and in the red zone. So I'll go Hunter Henry here. What say you?
All right, so we can't have the same answer because that was my pick. How about Austin Hooper?
All right.
How about Austin Hooper? They go the other tight end that they signed. A reunion with Alex Van Pelt perhaps will spark some chemistry, and we'll go with the other tight ends coming out of nowhere to lead them in receiving touchdowns.
Hey, man, quarterbacks love these tight ends. All right. Blank will lead the team in total touchdowns. I'm going to go Antonio Gibson here. I covered him in Washington.
Oh.
He's not really a true running back. He played wide receiver in college. He's a very versatile guy who has fumbleitis on that dude. Mm-hmm. But when he is a home run threat, when he gets the ball in his hands via the run or the pass. And I just have to imagine they're going to find ways, just like Washington did, to their credit, to creatively use Antonio Gibson. I think he has a big year with the Patriots. I'm just telling you, I'm warning all Pats fans, anyone who will listen to me, this guy puts the ball on the carpet a lot. But I think he will lead the team in total touchdowns. His versatility is really impressive, Adam.
Yeah, I was thinking about going with him as well, but I did not. I ended up going with Ramondre Stevenson. who I think, again, another guy who suffered an injury towards the end of the year, the ankle sprain. They're going to rely on him a lot this year, especially on the ground. So he'll be the guy that they go to in those situations, in the goal line, and then, who knows? Maybe he'll break a couple maybe screens or something to get some receiving touchdowns in there as well. So I'll go with Ramondre Stevenson.
Yeah, I mean, that brings us to the next one. Blank will lead the team in rush yards. It sounds like we're in lockstep on this. It's Ramondre.
Stevenson.
Although I'm waiting for him to really have that breakout season. I feel like he's better than the numbers he's putting up. Not that he's putting up bad numbers, and he does get a little nicked up here and there, but I'm still waiting. This would be a perfect time for a huge season from Ramondre Stevenson. I believe he's capable. It sounds like you do too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, again, staying healthy, being a horse back there, I think, he's got potential to have a really good year.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Blank will lead the team in sacks. Matthew Judon, right? Healthy. I mean, this guy has done it year in, year out, and he's generally healthy. He's not a guy who gets injured too much. So I don't feel like – I feel like last season was an anomaly. I think he's going to be healthy this season and ticked off. He's going to have a vengeance on his mind this season. I'm going Judon here.
Why do you think he's ticked off? Because he couldn't recruit the star free agents on social media like he tries to do each and every year, or is it because of the injury? It could be either one. It could be both. But yeah, I gotta go with Matthew Judon. The Red Sleeves are gonna have a good year, I think, as long as he stays healthy. Hopefully he does. I'd really like to see a full season with Judon Gonzalez, some of the other pieces they have on this defense, to see what they can do.
All right, bro. I want to end the show with this. So Jaden Daniels was interviewed and basically admitted that him and Malik Neighbors have a $10,000 bet on who's going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. And I thought my antennas immediately went up of, wait a minute, players are not supposed to be betting on these sports, right? Especially your sport. So what the hell's going on? So I looked into it, and it was essentially a gentleman's bet. It'd be like me and you. Now, for them, it was $10K. For you and I, it'd be, a coffee at Dunkin'. But,
$10.
Right, yeah, exactly. But, it was a friendly, gentlemanly bet amongst the two of them. But, Adam, upon further review, NFL policy states that NFL personnel are prohibited from placing, soliciting, or facilitating any bet, whether directly or through a third party, on any NFL game, practice, or other league event, such as a draft or combine. It includes betting on the outcome of a game, statistics, score, individual performance, and other prop bets. Adam, this feels like a violation, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does feel like a violation. It doesn't look good either. You know what I mean? I think the optics of it. I mean, maybe the rule isn't written specifically to this sort of bet that they have going on because it doesn't impact the outcome of the game, right? But it just doesn't look good. And I think, this will be something that it will definitely be addressed with the two players. But you got to remember how young they are too, right? We're thinking like, oh, how could you say something like that? But like, hello, like 40 somethings here. Like, we did our stupid stuff in our 20s. we made our mistakes and we learned from them. And I think it'll be the same thing here. And again, it's innocent enough, it's a competition between the two, which I like, but on the other hand, it's like, all right, 10 grand, throwing that money around, putting it out there. It's just not a great look.
Bro, I have a friend of mine who's a current NFL player, and I've interviewed him on several platforms. And even though we're tight and he trusts me, he always still makes sure that he says, Trav, no betting questions. I'm like, I know, bro, for the 1,000th time. I'm not going to ask you. But I understand where he's coming from because the league's not messing around with this stuff, Adam. You just can't have this. This is a bad look. And by the way, Jaden Daniels is a quarterback too. I mean, Malik Neighbors, at least I get, like, he's a diva wide receiver, one of them LSU wide receivers at that. He's already thrown Daniel Jones under the bus, and he hasn't even been in New York 5 minutes. But Jaden Daniels, I mean, literally, you're the savior in Washington. They're asking you to come in with new ownership and a rebrand and be the guy. You got to be smarter than this, bro. I mean, come on.
Yeah, but again, they're just when it comes to that stuff, man, we take that for granted. They're young. Yeah. They'll learn.
They'll learn. Well,
right.
they're going to learn the hard way, possibly. For all the best content of the day, make sure you follow us on Facebook, X, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. A pleasure always. Adam Pellerin, Travis Thomas, Foxboro Rush. That's a wrap. We'll see you next time. Peace.